Today, we are not going to talk about cutting out your morning coffee. We are not going to talk about skipping avocado toast or canceling Netflix or packing your lunch in a sad little Tupperware container. We are going to talk about something far more dangerous. We are going to talk about the invisible physics that operates on your money every single day, whether you understand it or not. Here's what I want you to understand before we say another word. Money does not behave like water sitting still in a bucket. Money behaves like a rocket ship, and a rocket ship that never reaches escape velocity doesn't orbit. It falls back to Earth every time. The question is never whether you're spending money. The question is whether your money is building the velocity to break free from the gravitational field that is pulling it, and you back down. That is the thesis of everything I'm going to tell you today. We are going to cover 4 loops. I call them the liquidity bleed, the scarcity fog, the proximity tax, and the compound void. By the time we reach the end, you will understand not just what is happening to your money, but why, and you'll have a 3-stage plan to stop it. Stay with me. Let me paint a picture. It is a Tuesday. Your car makes a sound it wasn't making on Monday. You do the math in your head before you even pull over. Not because you are pessimistic, but because you have done this before. The mechanic says $380. You do not have $380 sitting anywhere comfortable. You put it on the card. The card now costs you 24% interest. You will pay that $380 back as $490, maybe $520, stretched across 6 months of minimum payments, while you are also paying for groceries and the electric bill that went up again, and the school supplies your kid needed last week. You are not irresponsible. You are not lazy. You are caught in something that has a structure to it, a design almost, and nobody handed you the blueprint. I know this life because I have spent 70 years studying the machinery underneath it. And I want to tell you something plainly. This is not your fault, but it is your problem to solve. No one else is coming. So today we are going to reverse engineer this trap, loop by loop, until the whole thing is visible. Welcome to loop 1. I call this the liquidity bleed. Researchers at Princeton, Sendhil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir, ran a series of studies on what financial scarcity does to the human brain. They found that the cognitive burden of being poor, the constant mental arithmetic of not enough, consumes the equivalent of 13 IQ points. 13 points. That is the difference on a standardized test between a sober mind and a mildly intoxicated one. You are making financial decisions with a brain that is running a background program 24 hours a day called Will I Make It to Friday? And that program costs you. Let me tell you about 2 men. Call them David and Ray. Same income, same city, same rent. David keeps roughly $200 in his checking account because he has been told vaguely to have a cushion. One January, both cars need repairs. David's repair is $340. He does not have it cleanly. He transfers, shuffles, puts $200 on a car. The interest accumulates. 2 months later, a second small crisis hits, and he is now behind on 2 fronts. Ray pays the mechanic in full, feels a small sting, and rebuilds over 6 weeks. By March, Ray is whole. By March, David is still in the machinery of the first repair. The variable is not income. The variable is buffer. Terry Pratchett once wrote about a man named Vimes who understood this perfectly. Vimes observed that a rich man could buy a $50 pair of boots that lasted 10 years. A poor man could only afford $10 boots that lasted 1 year. Over a decade, the poor man spent $100 on boots, while the rich man spent $50. The poor man could never afford to be economical. That is not a parable. That is a precise description of how poverty compounds itself through the simple unavailability of capital at the moment it is needed. The prescription here is what I call the buffer. It is not glamorous. It is not an investment. It is $500 to $1,000 sitting in a separate account that you do not touch for anything other than a genuine financial emergency. This is not forever. This is a season, 6 months of disciplined accumulation, no return on that money, no optimization. Because without it, every small crisis becomes a compound event, and compound events destroy trajectory. Build the buffer first. Everything else comes after. But surviving the liquidity bleed is not enough, because once you stabilize, you walk directly into the second trap, a quieter one. I call this the scarcity fog. Loop 2, the scarcity fog. When cortisol, the stress hormone, stays elevated for extended periods, it does something specific to the prefrontal cortex. It narrows what researchers call cognitive bandwidth. Your brain under chronic financial stress becomes extraordinarily good at solving the immediate problem and nearly incapable of abstract future planning. Harvard Medical School documented this in long-term studies of low-income adults. The finding was stark. People under sustained financial pressure discount the future at rates that appear irrational from the outside, but are entirely logical from the inside. When survival is uncertain, the future feels like a fiction. This is why the advice to just invest early lands so poorly on someone who is truly struggling. I understand that. Charlie Munger used to say that the most important quality in investing is temperament, not intellect. But temperament requires a certain baseline of security. You cannot ask a man drowning in 2 feet of water to think about the marathon he wants to run next spring. The scarcity fog lifts only when you introduce what I call the skill stack. Not a second job, a second value stream built deliberately over 10 hours a week for 12 months around a skill that employers or clients would pay for separately from your current role. I have never met a person who built a genuine second skill in accounting, in writing, in technical repair, in sales, and did not see their options multiply within 18 months. Not because the world is fair. Because optionality is the enemy of desperation, and desperation is the true cost of the scarcity fog. Now, there is a mathematical reality underneath all of this that I need to show you plainly, because the trap is not just psychological, it is arithmetic. Einstein allegedly said, and whether or not he actually said it, the truth of it stands, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. Let me show you what that means in numbers that will stay with you. If you invest $1,000 at a 10% annual return, you earn $100 in year one. If you invest $20,000 at that same 10%, you earn $2,000 represents. That is a car repair. That is a month's rent in most American cities. That is a child's school fees. That $2,000 arrived without labor, without a shift. Without a commute, the person with $20,000 is not smarter than the person with $1,000. They simply crossed a threshold, a critical mass, where money began to work instead of waiting. The rule of 72 tells you how long it takes to double your money. Divide 72 by your rate of return. At 10%, your money doubles every 7.2 years. At 7%, every 10.3 years. Now run the reverse. Credit card debt at 24% doubles what you owe every 3 years. You are either on the earning side of that equation or you are on the paying side. There is no neutral. I have owned Coca-Cola since 1988. I have not lifted a finger. The dividends alone now exceed what I originally paid. That is not luck. That is the arithmetic of patience meeting the arithmetic of compounding. Welcome to loop 3. I call this the proximity tax. There is a phenomenon in social psychology called mirror neurons, specialized cells in the brain that cause you to unconsciously mirror the behavior, spending habits, and emotional states of the people physically closest to you. Researchers at Dartmouth found that your income tends to converge toward the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Not because of motivation or inspiration, because of neurological mirroring. Your brain is literally copying the financial behavior it observes most frequently. Nassim Taleb once wrote that a salary is the modern version of addiction. It feels safe because it is predictable, but it creates total dependence on a single source. The people around a salaried worker who are also salaried workers reinforce that dependence as normalcy. Nobody in that circle is modeling ownership. Nobody is discussing assets versus liabilities in any serious way. The conversation is about the game last night and whether the new car lease makes more sense than buying. This is the crab bucket effect. Marine biologists observed that when crabs are caught and placed in a bucket, they don't need a lid. The crabs themselves prevent escape. Any crab that climbs toward the rim is pulled back down by the others. Not out of malice, out of the simple mechanics of proximity. The people who love you will pull you back. They will say you're being extreme. They will say you're no fun. They will say you're changing. They are right. You have to become a little weird. You have to get used to being misunderstood. That is not a warning. That is a requirement. The prescription is what I call the signal circle. Deliberately spend 2 hours a week with one person whose financial reality is more advanced than yours. Not to impress them, to retrain your mirror neurons. The brain resets its baseline toward what it observes most. This is not forever. This is rewiring. Loop 4, I call this the compound void. The most dangerous moment in the ascent out of poverty is not the beginning. The beginning is fueled by pain. The most dangerous moment is when you reach $15,000 or $20,000 in savings for the first time in your life. You have never had this before. It feels like wealth. Your nervous system, which spent years in scarcity, begins to discharge. And at precisely that moment, the new car advertisement finds you. The vacation you kept deferring whispers. Your friends suggest a celebration dinner. I have watched people destroy 5 years of discipline in a single quarter, not because they were foolish, because the human brain, released from scarcity, overcorrects toward reward. Psychologists call this hyperbolic discounting, the tendency to dramatically overvalue an immediate reward relative to a future one. The person who waited years to feel okay suddenly cannot wait another 18 months to feel great. And the $18,000 becomes a down payment on a car payment, and the car payment becomes the new background stress, and the scarcity fog returns. Do not upgrade your lifestyle until your assets are generating income that covers the upgrade. That is the line. Not income, not savings. Assets generating income. The new car is allowed when your portfolio dividend exceeds the car payment. Until then, that money has a better use. Here is your 3-stage blueprint. Stage 1 is survival. Build your $500 buffer. Eliminate all debt with interest above 15%. Do not invest yet. Do not. The return on eliminating 24% debt is a guaranteed 24%. I cannot find you that in the market. Timeline 6 to 18 months. Stage 2 is accumulation. With the buffer in place and high-interest debt cleared, begin directing 15% of every paycheck into a low-cost index fund. I have said for decades that most people would be better served by a simple S&P 500 index fund than by anything more complicated. Build the skill stack in parallel. Add $10 to the investment account for every $10 the market drops. The death list for this stage: no leverage, no options or derivatives, no lifestyle inflation of any kind until your invested assets reach 6 months of your annual income. Stage 3 is freedom. This is not retirement. This is the point at which your assets begin to generate meaningful passive income, and you begin to feel, perhaps for the first time, that your time and your money are no longer perfectly fused. I want you to do something for me. Close your eyes for a moment if you can. You are 90 years old. You're in a rocking chair. You're not thinking about what you bought or what you drove or what you wore. You are thinking about what you built. You are thinking about whether you had enough time, enough unowned, unclaimed, uncommitted time to be fully yourself, to be present with the people who mattered. Wealth at its deepest level is not a number. It is the conversion of labor into liberty. It is buying back your hours until the hours are yours again. The $10 habit that keeps people poor is not the coffee or the lottery ticket or the takeout dinner. It is the habit of spending the present without accounting for what the present is costing the future. $10 every day, compounded over 30 years, invested in something that grows at historical market rates, is not a trivial number. It is a different life. The door to the cage has always been open. Most people never tried it because they never believed they were in a cage. Tell me in the comments, what is the one thing you are willing to sacrifice starting this month to begin building the buffer? Write it down. Put it somewhere you can see it. I will tell you what Charlie always told me. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now.